and welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss mystical works of literature and how they relate to recovery. We hope you enjoy today's podcast episode.
Hello, this is Buddy C. Welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. Today we have Drew, Lou, and Oscar. Good to have you guys today. If you're new to the podcast, we talk about how Taoist philosophy relates to our personal recovery. Most of us, I believe, all of us practice some form of 12-step, and along with our Al-Anon representatives, so that's good. The great thing is that the spirituality that we're learning applies to everyone and can be used by anyone that will surrender and let go and allow this way of life to be formed within them. And in Taoist thought, we talk about the Tao Te Ching and other books. Right now we're discussing Thomas Merton, who was a Trappist monk that died back in the late 60s of an accident. He was still fairly young. He did an interpretation of Chuang Tzu's work. This was a student of Lao Tzu, we believe, or it could have been Lao Tzu himself. We don't know for sure. We don't even know if Lao Tzu wasn't a group of students that wrote the Tao Te Ching. We have no idea, really. It doesn't matter, though, because the truths that we discuss are just as relevant and powerful today, I'm sure, as they were 2,500 years ago. Because that's the great thing about real truth, real spirituality. It doesn't change. The same principles that work then work now and will work in the millennial. Because we're told that the only constant is change. Yes, everything changes except for me. I have not seen the rules of virtue change. They seem to be constant. The one thing that's constant for me is how this works. I've never had it to where, it worked one day and the next day it didn't, or it stopped working and I had to go find something else. No, the laws of compassion work. They worked back when this was written. They've worked from what I've read in the middle and now. So it doesn't matter when you surrender and allow love to have its way. Someone asked me what I thought of God and everything. I said, I quit trying to figure that out. And all I know is when I'm kind to other people, my life gets better. And I'm just going to leave it there. And the person could not understand why I did not want to understand more. And I thought, I was where you are at one time, and I had it all figured out. Everything fit in a place. You could ask me anything, and I had a place for it. I had a little box for everything. I just threw all the boxes away because I don't have to try to understand those things. All I have to do is surrender to this virtuous, compassionate nature that we already have. And that's what I love about the Tao and studying the Tao, because it's very simplistic about how this works. It's so simplistic, it's many times we just look past it and don't see it. I do want to talk about a resource today at buddyc.org. We have a list of resources there, but the resource I want to talk about today is that we have a private Facebook group by the same name as a podcast, the Tao of Our Understanding. And only people within the group can see who you are. No one outside the group. I post a video there most of the time for the meeting. We post any kind of phrases, sayings, memes that we want to share. We post those in the group when there's something that spoke to us spiritually and we want to talk about it or continue conversation about what we discussed in the podcast at times. Just a good resource for us to connect. If you're a Facebook user and would like to join, you're more than welcome to do so. The logo is the same as the podcast too. So You shouldn't have any problem finding it at all. If you do, just email me at info@buddyc.org and I will help you out with that or any other questions you may have. I think, Lou, now what we do also, we have a moment of synchronicity that we like to bring. And when we have those things, we make a note of them. And this week, Lou has something. Lou, share with us, sir.
Everybody, and this is one of those things that probably happen a lot, but we don't necessarily pay attention to them. And this is a fortunate coincidence as much for the other person as for me. I was in a nearby town, and there's a restaurant I like to eat at. I was driving, I wanted to go in there, and I was driving by it and peeking, and it looked like they were crowded. So I went a little further on, then I looked back and saw a couple of people leaving. So I looped around. It was one-way street, took me about 2 blocks. I came back through, and I was cutting through a supermarket, and there was a lady that had her hood up and needed a jump. And so I have one of those little power packs, and I got out and gave her a jump just in time for her and her grandmother to be on their way. If I hadn't not seen the parking spot until after I was gone, I would never have looped around there. And I never would have been able to, that lady, I wouldn't know if that lady needed help or if she didn't. So I took a roundabout way to do that. Helped her out, made me feel good, probably made me feel too good given my Al-Anon caretaker role. And that may be part of the reason I'm bringing it up today, to slap myself on the back. But I had nothing to do with it, really. It's just one of those little things that when you feel like the flow's going for you, things open up and opportunities open up. And sometimes my eyes open up too.
Thank you. Thank you, Lou. If I'm not available, those things don't seem to line up for me. I have to be available, and it's obvious you were. That's one thing go ahead, Drew.
I've got a quick one that I hadn't thought about until just now. If that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, yesterday during the day, I was thinking about a husband and wife friend of ours who live nearby, but we haven't seen in months. And my wife's birthday is today. We don't have anything planned, but I thought it would be really nice to catch up with them. Maybe go out to dinner on Saturday night. But I didn't really think anything more of it than that. And last night my wife came home late from work, and I was thinking, oh, I should probably make dinner. And I didn't want to make the same old things that I usually make. So I looked up some new recipes and found one that looked good and realized I needed to go to the grocery store, which I really don't like doing. So I went to the grocery store and ran into the guy that I had just been thinking about a few hours earlier, who I hadn't seen in months. And we chatted for a minute and went our separate ways. And I asked my wife when I got home, hey, do you want to see if they want to eat dinner on Saturday night? She reached out to them while I was cooking, and they said yes. We're meeting up for dinner tonight. And it's funny, I had just been thinking about them on Friday and didn't really think anything more of it, and then ran into him. That was like what y'all were talking about. You don't really notice it until you notice it.
Now the question, Drew, now I want to start thinking about that. Did you think about them, and then because you thinking about them, did it cause you to run into them, or were you going to run into them and you were preempted with that with thinking about? I don't know how. It doesn't matter.
No, I'd like to think I'm not so egotistical as to say that because I thought about them in the morning, he went to the grocery store and that caused him to go to the grocery store. But no, I'm joking about that. I know what you're saying.
It's great just to go with the flow, though. I think we have that preemptive a lot of times to prepare us, maybe.
Uh-huh.
Because you had a purpose, too, for seeing him. And running into him was more eventful because you had already had those thoughts about wanting to get together.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't have to figure that out for it to work. just go with it.
Yeah. And it was while I was doing an act of kindness that I really didn't feel like doing, which was going to the grocery store.
Yeah. Huh. I didn't think about that part. That's good. Thank you. All right. We're on page 75 in Thomas Merton's book, The Way of Chuang Tzu. If you want a copy of this book, you can go to buddyseed.org, go to the bookstore, and we have this book there. Or you can go to, that way you would see exactly the one that we have. So if you're wanting to follow and study this with us, I know folks do that. I'll just read the whole thing, then we'll come back. In my end is my beginning. In the beginning of beginnings was void of void, the nameless. In the nameless was the one, without body, without form. This one, this being in whom all find power to exist, is the living. From the living comes the formless, the undivided. From the act of this formless come the existence, each according to its inner principle. This is form. Here body embraces and cherishes spirit. The two work together as one, blending and manifesting their characters. And this is nature. But he who obeys nature returns through form and formless to the living. And in the living joins the unbegun beginning. The joining is sameness. The sameness is void. The void is infinite. The bird opens its beak and sings its note, and then the beak comes together again in silence. So nature and the living meet together in void, like the closing of the bird's beak after its song. Heaven and earth come together in the unbegun, and all is foolishness, all is unknown, all is like the lights of an idiot, all is without mind. To obey is to close the beak and fall into unbeginning. So let's go back to the first and just look at this. Let's sit with this a little and let's go through and see what we can glean, what's here for us. So we're talking about in the beginning of beginnings. So at the beginning was void and nameless.
Void of void.
The ultimate void, right? That's the way you're reading that?
Not just void.
Right. The ultimate beginning and the ultimate void. Is that what you're seeing?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. That's Genesis 1.
That's pretty similar.
Yeah. And guys that's listening, we do quote all kinds, all different practices. So y'all that come from a 12-step background, please do not be offended when we throw out some Bible, because I do that occasionally. We're doing it twice today. John 1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Tao Te Ching, first verse. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The unnameable is the externally real. Naming's the origin of all particular things.
When I was reading in the beginning of all beginnings was the void or the ultimate void, thinking about beginnings we have, each of us have. And it seems like some of the major impactful beginnings do come from the void. They come from when things are shook up, when all hope is lost and we don't have anything underneath us to hold us. That seems like that's a fruitful place for beginnings.
Doesn't it, Lou? I was thinking about the one in the very beginning. Rather than doing what we talk about all the time, how can we apply this to ourselves? Thank you for roping me back in.
It applies everywhere, right?
Yeah.
In the macro and the micro.
Yes. Now it goes on to talk about the nameless. So you've got the beginning, the void, the nameless. And within the nameless was the one. The one has no body and no form. Now it starts talking about this one, this being in whom all find power to exist. Doesn't say this being lives, is the living. That reminds me of when Moses was confronted with the burning bush and he asked God, "Who do I say sent me?" He said, "I am. Tell them I am that I am sent you." Y'all have heard me talk about that before. I got a Jewish friend of mine in recovery. I asked him what that meant, and a very applicable meaning is the ever-present moment. What the only thing that is all the time, right? Is this ever-present moment. And as our friend Oscar says, we're always in the moment, but we just lose sight of that. So this is the living. From the living comes the formless, the undivided. And from formless comes all things that exist. According to formless's its inner principle? Who is the it's there? Each is inner principle. Is that what that's talking about? So the inner principle that everything has within, would that be a way to say it? Okay. So we're down to inner principles from formlessness and undividedness and oneness. And it says that is actually form. And that's how the body cherishes the spirit, is knowing that first of all is within. That's what I'm seeing. And that nothing that we're describing here comes from our abilities or our efforts. It's quite the opposite, right?
I think, buddy, in my little story, it was the universal mind talking to another part of the universal mind, just a little whisper.
Two hands of the same body, one hand helping the other, maybe not realizing they're really the same body. And the two working together would be the body and spirit, right? Is that correct?
Maybe all of form, not just the body, but maybe water and the trees and the earth.
Yeah. Blending and manifesting their characters. Now it moves on from there to being this is nature. The blending and manifesting. When I think nature, I'm thinking of the birds, trees, all those things, but maybe it's our nature, like the way we're meant, the natural way for us to live could be part of that too.
Our true nature.
Yes. Yes. He who obeys nature, or let's say he who obeys his true nature, returns through form and formless to the living. Oscar?
Yeah, I think nature and our true nature are one thing. So it's one thing, it's the same. The nature is the same as our true nature. And there is this opposites working through it. So the formless and the form are two huge opposites, and they blend together. So they are like the yin and yang sign. They blend together. They come from one. So eventually they are one. If you go back, if you go backwards. But here he goes from the beginning is one. No, before one, there is the beginning, which is really fascinating, I think, because I would say in the beginning of beginnings of us void of void, that's the one, because there is only one. But from this comes the one. In the nameless was the one. So there is a kind of separation there already from one to two, but it's not written like that. There is like the incomprehensible, and from the incomprehensible comes the one, and from one come two, formless and form, or yin and yang, and from that comes the living, and the result is nature. But then the universe is nature, but also we are nature. Everything is nature. So everything follows these laws of change, and change is a constant movement of yin and yang, of opposites. So it's a kind of mystical writing about the beginning of the universe. And then now I think, but he who obeys nature, so we have kind of choice, it seems, to obey it or not to obey it. So we can obey nature or we cannot obey it. If we obey it, we will return through form and formless, so through the opposites, to the living, which is the one. It says in the third sentence, this one is being in whom all find power to exist. So our existence, the living is in the one. And if we obey nature, we leave the opposites and we return to the source, the one.
So Oscar, you're saying that if we flow with the Tao, I don't like the word obey, but if we flow with the Tao and we're we're part of the nature, and we don't fight it, we don't try to swim upriver with it, we just flow with it, and it flows through us, and then that brings us back.
Then we live in the
source.
Beginning. Yes, then we live in the source. So we are connected with the source, it says. The only thing we have to do is nothing.
I like what you said about change. It sounded almost like change is a dance of yin and yang.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, I like
oh, sorry. Yeah, no. It even says when it goes further, it's getting even more fascinating, because when we are connected with the source in the living, so it's the one, we join the unbeginning. So in the end, it's all one, like in the beginning of the voids of voids. So the ultimate beginning. So it says actually that we can go all back to the source, to the one unity we are. So it's actually explaining duality existing within non-duality. So the ultimate truth is non-duality. It's how I read it. Because the joining is sameness. Sameness is void. The void is infinite. I'm walking ahead of the of the verse.
That's fine, Oscar, because that's where we were heading. I was thinking that, okay, the first stanza is more of a background of how it works. The next section there is the personal application. So when we surrender to our true nature, we return. It's cyclical, right? It's this big cycle. So we surrender and return through change, through changelessness, through form, through formless, to the living, and in the living joins the unbegun beginning. The joining's a sameness, and it goes to the void, and the void to the infinite. So it's like it all, okay, we have a situation. I can see how, if I have a resentment, a recovery, we're shown that page 552 in the fourth edition talks about, of the big book, talks about that we pray for those we resent. I haven't read that lately. Let's read some big book today too. If you have a resentment you want to be free of, this is page 552. If you'll pray for the person or the thing that you resent, you will be free. Pray for a thing, person or thing. If you'll ask in prayer for everything you want for yourself to be given to them, you will be free. Ask for their health, their prosperity, their happiness, and you'll be free. Even when you don't want it for them and your prayers are only words and you don't mean it, go ahead and do it anyway. Do it every day for 2 weeks and you'll find you have come to mean it and want it for them. And you'll realize that where you used to feel bitterness and resentment and hatred, we start to change. We start feeling compassion, understanding, and love. I don't pray things for me. This is not about, I've seen this work for people who don't even have a God belief, atheists that are getting sober. You can even take it as an approach of, I wish good things for them. I hope they have, you could say it any way that you have to rationalize it, but you're getting out of the way and wanting good things for them. You could even say, I want good things for them and not mean it. And it says you'll start changing. So if we obey our true nature, I would see that as praying for the person you resent. We start with a form. We're doing this prayer and it becomes formless because we change. Then we start realizing that with time, I began to see that there was nothing for me to resent. There was no one to resent. I was resenting because I was fearful. If they did something to me, I imagine it was out of fear too, because all of my character defects came from fear. So it was just both of us participating in fear.
The opposite of the dance with yin and yang. the dance
Yes.
with the dance with one and not the other.
Yes.
Buddy, Al-Anon, we talk a lot about detachment, detaching ourselves. Another way of saying non-attachment, really.
Yes.
And that comes into, it seems.
It does. Because we see it all being absorbed back to that one, that it's all one moment. We're all in this moment together. And so we're all part of the moment. Oscar.
Yeah, I also recognize my third step in this, the decision to hand over my will and my life to a higher power, which of course is only a decision in the third step. Then the action that has to follow is letting go of those resentments, because they are always me wanting to change the world, me wanting people to behave like I want them to behave. And it's not nature. So nature is, A Course in Miracles has a very famous lesson, which is called I need do nothing, which is the same as Wu Wei. I need do nothing. I don't have to interfere. I don't have to manipulate. I don't have to lie. I don't have to do anything. I can just let nature do its thing as it does, as it goes, and rest in this. And when I rest in this, there's going to be peace sooner or later. And sometimes it takes 2 weeks, and sometimes it takes 2 minutes, but it will always be there. And it's a beautiful process of letting go and let nature do its thing. Really nice, really beautiful.
Thank you, Oscar. Then we get an example with the bird. The bird opens its beak and sings its note. And then the beak comes together again in silence. So the bird began with silence, sang its song, and then it closed its beak and it was silent again. So nature and the living meet together in the void, like the closing of the bird's beak after its song.
You have this prayer. Do you know the prayer? Let me be still and know that I am God. That's where I think about now. It's where nature and living meet together in void.
Be still and know, right?
Yeah. The nature, which is the opposites, which is, let's say, 2 or 10,000 things, meets the one in the beginning of beginnings. And that's silence. That's silence. Thanks.
The void is there. The living fills the void with song, and then the void returns. You think of the bird as the living, as the form. Form exhibits itself and then goes back.
Heaven and earth come together in the unbegun, and all its foolishness, all is unknown. All is like the lights of an idiot. All is without mind. To obey, What you talked about obeying your true nature, the way you do that is to close the beak and fall into unbeginning. Be still and know, right? That's why meditation is so important to me. I didn't start meditating until I was 8 years sober, but now the primary mode of my devotional time is in meditation, in sitting and listening, and just being with no agenda. Drew?
The visual of the bird song or audio of the bird song, that kind of ties into what you just said about being in the moment, being present in the moment. The thing that came up for me with the bird song was when I'm out in the neighborhood or even when I'm in my house, if I'm just still, I can almost always hear bird song. There's almost always birds singing. Even 3 a.m, mockingbirds are doing their thing outside the bedroom window. If I'm going for a walk in the neighborhood and I just quit the chatter that's going on in my mind, I can notice birds singing or squawking or doing whatever they're doing. And that always, if I can just focus on the birds singing, that gets me in the moment more than anything, really. Or focus on the sound of wind going through leaves or something like that. So making it a point to still my mind and allow the bird song to come and go, noticing it, but not attaching to it or anything. Those are always really peaceful moments for me. And the second thing that came up was just the idea of life and me and everything is just bird song. A bird sings its song, it opens its beak, and the song comes out, and then it closes its beak, and the song echoes and exists, and then goes away. I feel like that's a good metaphor for life and matter and everything. Is the bird beak of the infinite void opened up, and here we are. We're the bird song of the infinite void, and then at some point the beak's going to close and we're all going to be gone. So that was just a metaphor that came to my mind about it.
Thanks, Drew.
Drew, that's right, with the idea of the universe, the one song.
Uh-huh.
This is from verse 117 in the Wensa, which we did a verse of the Wensa last week. I think it was 116 we did. Had a very good conversation out of that. Here it says, calm is the ruler of form and silence is the master of sound. Definitely applicable to what we're discussing. What about this phrase, the title phrase of this story? In my end is my beginning.
It reminds me of that, the drawing of the snake eating its tail.
Don't tread on me. Yes.
It's also like Drew mentioned with the bird song, you start with silence, then and then there's silence again. But it's also a human life or an animal's life. You come from nothing and you go back to nothing. And that's with the planet, and it's with the bird song. It's with everything. It comes and it goes. Even stars and mountains, they come and they go. It's everything. Everything comes and goes. That's the world of duality.
In my end is my beginning. In my beginning is my end, right?
Yeah.
And I think looking at, how in my end is my beginning can apply to my life. When my active addiction ended, that's when my life began.
Yes.
And in the end, when my job ended, that's when the next chapter of my life began. Looking at everything that ends, there's a beginning that comes from it.
And I assume those words, the title, didn't come from Tzu's teaching. I assume it came from Merton, who pulled this all together. And Merton was big on the idea that you had to have kind of a death before you could have a spiritual awakening. You had to die to ego, die to this world in order to surrender that, to give that up, to become non-attached with that. But I don't know. It could be long-standing Taoist phrase too.
Yeah, I know in the Tao Te Ching there are lines like one has to die before one can be born. One has to die before one can live.
And regardless of the messenger, the message is just that. They go together.
You have to let go of what has died so you can grasp the new thing that's coming.
You can't have silence without having sound to be gone. You can't have sound without there's some place for it to be.
You can't have music without silence, because it's the silence that makes the music. It's the silence between the notes. Yeah. Silence, calmness, stillness plays a lot larger role than what we would think. And at the end, he's talking about all is without mind. No one understands. Whatever we think is the understanding is not understanding. All is unknown. And it doesn't say we'll ever know. It just says all is unknown, period. Mentally, I cannot know this. I cannot understand it. That's why words are so inadequate in describing it. All we can do is describe it, not explain. Oscar?
The bird is also the chattering in my mind.
Yeah, I can see that. Huh.
Yeah, so to obey is to close the beak and fall into unbeginning. And that's where we can maybe, with the grace of a higher power or whatever, find some kind of experience, which is already strange, because then you have an experience of the unbeginning. So you have already two. So it can't be an experience.
There comes a point that we just have to surrender to what is.
That's it.
And let the rest take care of itself.
The Tao Te Ching warns us right away, lets us know right away.
Yeah.
The path that's called the path is not the true path. It's not the real one. It's the finger pointing at the moon.
That's the science and analysis and logic that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Drew?
Yeah, you mentioned a minute ago about how necessary silence and emptiness and those sorts of things are. Like the early verse in the Tao Te Ching about how a cup is only useful when it's empty, and you can only put stuff in the house when the house is empty. I had a moment of realization a couple of weeks ago, and I swear I was sober when I had this realization, but I had 2 bags of corn nuts. One was regular, no flavor, just regular corn nuts, and the other one was spicy. And the spicy ones are a little too spicy for me, and the regular ones are a little bland. I poured them all together in one bag to mix them up, but when I put them in a Ziploc bag to mix them up, I poured in one bag and then I poured in another on top of it. And I tried to mix it up, but the Ziploc bag was completely full of corn nuts and they wouldn't mix because there was no room for them to spread out and jostle around. So I put them in a bigger bag and then shook them up, and they had space to move around in. So they were able to mix and all that. And I had a moment of realization, like, the space was necessary to be able to mix up the corn nuts. Just stuffing them all into one bag didn't give them room to move around, but giving them space did.
I don't think we understand the role of silence, emptiness in our life, formlessness, because all I used to do was try to have form everywhere. I had to figure it out, right? Instead of falling into unbeginning, falling into emptiness or being still and just listening. Good conversation. Thank you, guys. Anything else before we close? You guys have a great week and hope to see you next week. Thank you.
Hello, this is Buddy C. I wanted to make you aware of several recovery-related resources that I've posted in the episode description. These resources include a list of recovery podcasts, a free sober meditation app, daily recovery email, shared Google recovery calendars. Hope you put some of these resources to use and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends in recovery.